We are in a series, we kicked it off last week, called Living the Dream. We're looking at the life of Joseph from Genesis, the Old Testament, and there's something special about Joseph. Joseph had this dream that God gave him. He was 17 years old when God gave him that dream, and it was a powerful dream. I mean, it was a dream that his family would be bowing down to him, and that's a lot because Joseph was one of the youngest. He only had one younger brother, Benjamin, so he was one of the young ones in the family. A lot of older brothers, and he had this powerful dream. But his dream was different than his destiny. You know, God sometimes will share us a dream, and we think it will turn out this way then, because God shares us a dream that will be great. In our head, that's how we take it. And the destiny is that God will be great. So there's a big difference. He'll share a dream and we go wild with our imaginations of what this dream will be like. But the destiny, when we begin to walk in the destiny, which is different, even if it's a God-given dream, the God-given destiny is always a little different than the dream. So he gave Joseph this dream at 13, but he wasn't able to walk in the destiny of that dream until he was 30. 13 years went by from the time he had the dream, not to the time he fulfilled the destiny, but the time he began to walk within that destiny. How many feels like God's given you a dream and you've given up on it a little bit because the time has lapsed a little too long, and you would have thought it would have been farther along by now? But I'm telling you, the reason there's a time period between the dream and begin to walk in the destiny is because there's character building that has to build within you for you to be able to walk within that destiny. So God is so good at giving you the dream and then building your character so that you can then walk within that destiny. And what keeps us so many times from walking within the destiny is our character is not ready yet to handle everything that God has for us. And if he began to drop it on us now, we would fall apart because our character can't handle it. So God is testing Joseph in his character in ways all throughout the dreams, or from the dream to the destiny. That's the part of his life. So that's what we're looking at, is the testings of the character that God puts upon him. And last week we started off with the pride test. How many's ever failed at that before? Good news, God lets you retake again and again. How many's retaken the test again and again and again and again and again and still again? It's like, I thought I did pretty good on it that time. It's like, it's a B minus, but I'm looking for an A. Like, oh. So you circle around again, it pops up, and again. So last week it was the pride test, and this week we're going to go a little bit deeper in Genesis chapter 37 and verse 12. It says this, then his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, are not your brothers feeding the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send you to them. So he said to him, here I am. And he said to him, please go and see if it is well with your brothers and well with the flocks, and bring back word to me. So he sent him out of the valley of Hebron and and he went to Shechem. Now a certain man found him, and there he was wandering in the field, and the man asked him, saying, what are you seeking? So he said, I'm seeking my brothers. Please tell me where they are feeding their flocks. And the man said, they have departed from here, for I heard them say, let us go to Dothan. Then Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. Now, when they saw him afar off, even before he came near them, they conspired against him to kill him. Boy, that's a rough family. And they said to one another, look, this dreamer's coming. Come, therefore, let us now kill him and cast him into some pit, and we shall say, some wild beast has devoured him. We shall see what will become of his dreams. But Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands and said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said to them, shed no blood, but cast him into this pit which is in the wilderness, and do not lay a hand on him, that he might deliver him out of their hands and bring him back to his father. So it came to pass, when Joseph had come to his brothers, that they stripped Joseph of his tunic, the tunic of many colors that was on him. Then they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, and there was no water in it. I'm going to preach to you on down in the pit. How many has ever been down in the pits a little bit in your life? You know, I don't know about you, but we all face times that we're down in the pits. I mean, I've experienced in my life that it's like it feels like you're just in this pit that you can't get out of. And this is what we're talking about here, this pit that it feels like it swallows you up, that you can't get out. And I've realized in life that you can be in multiple pits at the same time. Come on. I mean, it's possible you can be in a financial pit and a relational pit at the same time. You know, it somewhat goes together a lot of times. You can be in a financial pit and your marriage feels like it's in the pits. And your parenting feels like it's in the pits. And everything around it just seems to be like it's in the pits. Then it hits spiritual pits in your life. I mean, it's everything where it's just all at once. It's just one pit after another. Is it one pit after another, or is it just one deep pit that you cannot get out of? And it feels like all hope's gone. And your mood changes and feel like everything's lost and nothing will be accomplished. And it can go from a moment like Joseph where you're dreaming high, you're dreaming big, and everything seems to be going right, and then all of a sudden it comes out of nowhere that you're just in the pit. I heard this story one time of this guy that he would get off work late or from the factory, and he would walk home, and there was a shortcut to his house that he would go through, but it went through a cemetery. So he would go through this cemetery every day because it was shorter to his house as he's walking from the factory to the cemetery, or through to home through the cemetery. And this one night when he gets off work, he's walking home, and it's dark, no moon out. And it's foggy on top of it. I would have went another way, but he still goes through the cemetery, not seeing real good. He falls into a freshly dug grave that they're going to use the next morning. And he tries everything he can to get out of that grave, and he can't. Finally, he comes to this decision of, well, I can't jump out. I've tried. In the morning, they'll come by because they'll be using it. I'll just try and sleep here for now. And in the morning, I'll get some help to get out of the grave, out of this pit. So he's resting, and then it's about 2:30 and the bars have closed. And this man that was drunk goes walking through the cemetery too. And he falls into the same pit, into the same grave. Well, that drunk man, he's screaming. He's just doing everything he can to get out of that. He's jumping, he's hollering, he's everything, and he finally calms down. And then this hand from behind touches him on the shoulder and says, "There's no way out of here." But there was. He got out immediately right then. He jumped out, that man. And, I've found what I'm pointing out with this is I found with the right motivation, you can get out of the pit. If you get your motivation right, it is possible to get out of that pit in your life. But I think you've got to first realize what brought you into that pit in the first place, what brought you into that position. Because it's wise to see that there are things that bring you there. And I'm talking about a little bit of a soul searching. Asking God to reveal to you if there's anything that you did that caused this. Because when you're in the pit, it's easy to blame everybody else, isn't it? It's easy to blame everybody around you for your circumstances. It's easy to say, well, this is the reason. Joseph could have said, "It's not my fault. It's my brother's fault that I'm in here. My brothers were just jealous of me. It's not the pride that's in me. It's the envy that's in them. That's the reason I'm in here." It's easy to blame everybody else for your situation. It's easy to blame the government for the financial pit that you're in. Come on. Well, the economy is just bad right now. It just came out of nowhere. This inflation is killing me. It's the government's fault that I'm in here. It's not the fact that I've never tithed in my life, so I can't live under the blessing, and the devourer's always coming after me. It can't be that. Y'all looked mean at me right then. Like you already threw me in the pit. It's got to be somebody else. It's the way my parents raised me. That's why I'm like this. That's why I'm going through this right now. It's my parents' fault. But I'm in my 20s and my 30s right now. Come on. But it's easy to still blame everybody else for everything that's happening to me. It's easy to look at everybody else and point fingers of why I'm in here instead of doing some soul searching of myself of what got me in this place. Look at it that Joseph's brothers hated him. That's why he's in this pit. But it goes deeper than that. Joseph has a lot of fault here. Do you realize, just thinking about when you're reading this passage, Joseph wasn't with his brothers while they were working. Joseph is at home, and most scholars think that Jacob is separating them on purpose because the hatred. That he realizes, look, they all hate Joseph, so I'm separating them. But then it comes to a point that he's saying, look, I need to try and build this relationship. Joseph, why don't you go check on your brothers? Joseph's 17. His brothers are in their 20s, 30s. He's even got his oldest brothers. Reuben would have been in his 40s at this point. They didn't need a 17-year-old to go check on them and make sure they're doing the job right. But that's what Joseph's thinking. I got to go and I've got to check and I've got to make sure that they're doing this right. We already know from the last week he's a tattletale. You know, in his head, he's thinking, I'm ready to go, and I'm going to give back a report to my dad that they weren't even where you said they were supposed to be. They moved off. They're doing their own thing. They're not doing it the way you told them to. And then it said that they saw him while he was afar off coming. Why do you think they saw him while he was so far away? Because he's wearing that god-awful coat of many colors. That coat that you can see from a mile away. Well, there's Joseph coming. Who else is going to wear something like that? That coat that he's proudly wearing, you know he's not meaning to do any work when he's wearing this coat of many colors. He hasn't come to do any work. He's just wearing this coat that's showing that I'm my dad's favorite, showing it off as he's coming to a bunch of brothers that are bigger, that are older, that can't stand him because of his attitude. Showing off. Just showing it off. Think about it this way of what it represents. Joseph had his father's favor upon him. That's what he was showing. But listen. You have your father's favor upon you also. Come on. Joseph had a gift from his father. So do you. Joseph was proud of that gift and showed it off everywhere he went. And I just want to think about a little bit with many Christians walking around that they are proud and showing off every gift that God blesses them with. In fact, I wonder if that's how the outside world sees the church, is that we're all about the blessings because that's all we're showing off. That we're all about the favor. And maybe that's what has turned off people from the church, is because they see us as people that are just after the blessings. I mean, my goodness, we're writing books, living your best life now. Living the blessed life. How many books are about the blessings, the blessings, the blessings, the blessings, the blessings? And I want you to realize that it's not, that so many times we see our value in the gift, and I want you to realize the giver is better than the gift. That our value is in the giver, not the gift. And if we would quit bragging about, here, look at what God's given me, look at what God's blessed me with, look at what this, look at what I have, look at what here, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this, instead of just look at him. I wonder if they would see us different. Because Joseph's brothers hated him. Because of his pride in his gifts. And look at it this way. He got the gift from his father, this coat, but because of his pride, he lost it. He's in the pit because of his pride. He loses the coat because of his pride. He loses it all because of his pride. And I know you might be thinking, but God wouldn't take back his gifts. He doesn't do that. I didn't say the Father took it from him. I said he lost it. And there's a big difference. Not only did he lose his gift because of his pride, he lost his relationship with his Father because of his pride. But here's the great thing. Here's the great thing. Look, as you follow the story of Joseph, at the end, the relationship with his father's restored. And even though he doesn't get his coat back, but he is the second wealthiest man in the world. I mean, he's second in command right behind Pharaoh. He is second wealthiest man in the world. Why I'm pointing that out is he had a lot of coats. He might have lost this one, but he had plenty of coats whenever it's all restored. Because when God restores back, he restores back good. So you might have lost some things because you're in the pit, but when God begins to restore back, he restores back greatly. So what's the perspective we can get from this pit? Because really you want to get God's perspective while you're in there and not Satan's perspective. And it's so easy to get Satan's perspective. Because when you're down in there, come on, you know what I'm talking about. When you're down in there, you're in this emotional pit, this spiritual pit, financial, relational, whatever, you're in this pit in your life. It's so easy to hear the voice of Satan. And telling you the reason you're in here is because you screwed up. You screwed up big time. It's your fault. It's all your fault. It's their fault. They're not going to help you. You'll never get out of this. This is the worst place. You'll never get out. Your dream's over. Your destiny's over. You've blown it. You'll never make it. You've fallen so far behind. You've messed up. Your life's over. When you're in this pit, Satan begins to condemn you at that point. And I want you to realize, listen, anytime you feel condemnation, that's always Satan, that's never God. God does not condemn you. In fact, I love, we know John 3:16 so good, but I love even more John 3:17 that follows it that says, for God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world. He doesn't condemn. He never condemns. But what does he do through the world? Through him, you might be saved. He doesn't condemn you. Here's what he does. He convicts you. There's a huge difference between conviction and condemnation. Satan is good about condemning you. God is awesome about convicting you. And there is a massive difference. Condemnation says you messed up, you're bad, your life's over. Conviction says you messed up, but I love you and I can get you through out of this if you repent. If you change, come on. Conviction changes you, condemnation doesn't. Condemnation sends you farther and further in. Conviction changes you. Condemnation brings death. Conviction brings hope. I mean, think of it when the adulterous woman, when they brought her to Christ. Remember that story in the New Testament? When they brought her to Christ and they said, look, we caught her in the very act of adultery. They brought her with stones in their hands, ready to fulfill the law of putting her to death, because that's what the law says. If you're in adultery, death is what has to take place. So here she is. She's caught in the act. They have the stones in their hands, and they bring her to Jesus, wanting him to condemn her. But what does he do? He doesn't say a word. He just stoops down, begins to write in the sand. And I've always found this story so interesting that this is the only place that we find that Christ wrote anything. And we don't know what he wrote. You would think the disciples would have been, getting around here, what's he writing? This is going to be good. I've never seen him write before. This is the first time he's wrote anything. And the disciples don't tell us what he wrote. We don't know a thing that he wrote that day. We can speculate, we can think. I've heard preachers preach on this a bunch and tell me what he wrote, but I don't know. I don't know how they know what he wrote. I've heard preachers say he began to write dates that the guys that were sleeping with. They're like, well, I don't think he did that. That would have brought condemnation on her too. Don't know where you're getting that. Others are saying that he's writing sins out. That people he knows have committed. We don't know what he wrote. But whatever he wrote, people begin to drop their stones and leave. Personally, I'm with the fact I think he began to write sins, which I think so beautiful that when he writes his commandments, he writes them in stones. When he writes sins, he writes them in sand so they can just be wiped clean, and we don't even know what they were. They begin to drop the stones. They begin to leave. Jesus comes back and he asks this woman, he says, where's your accusers? She's looking around, I don't have any. And Jesus follows it up with saying, look, then neither do I condemn you. I don't condemn you, but I bring you conviction. Go and sin no more. Because conviction changes you. Condemnation keeps you where you're at. Condemnation leads to death. So Satan condemns. He says it's over. He presents. Here's what he does a lot of times, and you see within this story, he'll present false evidence that appears real. You ever heard that before? The acronym for fear? That fear is that. Fear is false evidence that appears real. And he's so good at that. In fact, let me show you. After the brothers put Joseph in the pit, look at what they do to their father. It says that in verse 31 in Genesis 37, so they took Joseph's tunic, killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the tunic in the blood. Then they sent the tunic of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, we found this. Do you know whether it is your son's tunic or not? Look at Jacob's response. It says, and he recognized it and said, it's my son's tunic. A wild beast has devoured him. Without a doubt, he's torn to pieces. Now, had a wild beast devoured Joseph? No. No, that was a lie. That did not happen. Satan is so good at presenting evidence to us that's false, and we let our minds go wild and we begin to believe lies off of false evidence that is brought to us. He sees a tunic in blood and his mind immediately goes to what happened that got it there. It's over. I'll never see my son again. He's dead. It's gone. A wild beast ate him, and this tunic survived. He's gone, but this tunic made it somehow or another, blood covered. But it's over. I'll never see. He's creating this. Don't we do the same thing? When as soon as it's over, as soon as we find ourselves in the pit, you can be, I've seen this so many times in a marriage pit, come on. That all of a sudden, a little false evidence, you get a little cold shoulder, and you start getting angry. Your mind starts kind of going at, why is this? Who are they talking to? Wonder what's going on there. I bet they're having an affair. I bet this is going on. They don't love me anymore. I know I shouldn't have married this person. He'll start doing all this stuff. Or you get along with this person a little bit better at work, and your spouse, they're showing a little bit more interest, and all of a sudden you start just well, I probably wasn't even supposed to marry this person. This was probably the person I'm supposed to be with anyway. Believing lies off of some evidence, false evidence, not even true evidence, and believing lies and letting our mind go. And Jacob believed this lie for 22 years. Think about that. For 22 years, he believed Joseph's dead. 22 years he had buried the tunic. He's buried his son, so he thinks. He's buried and believed the lie for 22 years that his son is dead, believing it. And I can't believe this. It almost makes you sick at this part of the story. That his brothers knew. They saw him mourning. They saw the hope lost. They saw all of this gone. They knew that he wasn't dead, and they still didn't tell their father. I think, how cruel is that? That's almost as cruel, the hardness of sin right there. But Satan does the same thing with us, doesn't he? When you're in the pit, make sure, here's what I'm just trying to get to you. When you're in the pit, make sure you get God's perspective and not Satan's perspective. Because Satan will always get you to believe you can't come out. That all hope's lost. You'll believe lies. So what's the purpose of this? The purpose of the pit. Because you got to believe there's a purpose in everything. Come on. You got to believe. If you're in a pit right now, you've got to believe there's a purpose in it. And it's not that my hopes are dashed and that I'll never get out there. There's got to be a purpose within this pit. And here it is. The purpose of it is that you cry out to God. Believe it or not, that is the purpose of the pit, is that you begin to cry out to God. The purpose is that we humble ourselves and realize we need Him. Remember, it was pride that really got Joseph in the pit. And what did the pit do? It humbled Joseph. His pride was gone. The pit worked on the character flaw of pride that was able to get him out so that now he could move in a different way. The pit was what did the difference. It humbled him. And the purpose is that it humbles us. It humbles you in a way that you realize that you need Him. So we get in the pit and we cry out to Him that God, I need you, I need you, I need you, I need you, I need you. And then here's what I've seen in people's lives and in my own. I get out of the pit and then I start thinking, well, that wasn't so bad. And then I get back in the pit. And I realize sometimes that pit next is deeper. You know, here's the great thing about God. He's got a lot of pits to get you to the place that you're dependent upon Him. He's got a lot of pits that you can get into, and they'll get deeper and deeper and deeper until you finally find one that you're like, oh, I don't ever want to get. in that place again. God, I need you. I realize that I can't do this on my own. I keep getting myself in situations and I am dependent upon you to get me out. So God, now I've come to a place that I realize I need you to keep me out of situations, that God, everything I have is because of you. Everything I've done is because of you. There's no pride left within me, God. God, I'm totally dependent upon you. I need you. Let me show you this with another man what I'm talking about. This other man that found himself in a pit. Maybe you've heard of him. His name was Jonah. They came into a pit, and he had this destiny. He had this destiny to save a city, but when he realized his destiny, he ran from his destiny to a town of Tarshish. And he goes and he finds himself finally in a belly of a fish. And look at what it says in Jonah 2 in verse 1. Shelby, will you come up? Because I just looked at the clock. And y'all are thinking, how long are you going to keep me here? This is what it says in Jonah chapter 2, verse 1. It says, then Jonah prayed to the Lord, his God, from the fish's belly. And he said, I cried out to the Lord because of my affliction, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and he heard my voice. And then look at the end of verse 6. It says, the earth with its bars closed behind me forever. In other words, I'm here and I don't see how I can get out. Yet, you God, have brought up my life from the pit. O Lord my God. And what I'm letting you know is that it's in the pit that when you cry out, God hears you. That when you cry out with a humble heart, he hears you and he pulls you out of that place. Well, will you stand with me? I love the story of Joseph, and there's such a parallel between it and Christ. I love reading things from the Old Testament because they're parallel so much with the New Testament. It's almost like the Old Testament's a picture that's being painted that tells the story of the things to come in the New Testament. It's so just beautiful how it works. But here you have in this story, you have Reuben. He's the oldest son of Jacob, Joseph's older brother. And Reuben's desire was to deliver Joseph out of the pit and bring him back to his father. Which is a picture of Jesus, the Son of God, only begotten. His desire is to pull you out of the pit, bring you back to relationship with the Father. There's even more parallels where Joseph was stripped of his robe, Jesus was stripped of his. Joseph was sold for 20 pieces of silver. If you go on to read the story, he's sold for 20 pieces of silver. To some Midianite traders. They would then sell him to Egyptians for a profit. And the price of a slave back then was 30 pieces of silver. So Joseph was sold for 30 pieces of silver. Jesus was sold for 30 pieces of silver. Joseph, if you read on, I stopped off with he's in the pit under the plan of Reuben's plan. It was Judah's plan, though, to let sell him. So Judah sells Joseph. Judah and Judas are the same Hebrew word. Jesus is sold by Judas. Joseph was thrown into the pit and God delivered him out of the pit. Jesus was in the grave. And Ephesians 4 puts it this way, that Jesus descends down into the pit, but 3 days later, God raised him up. Here's the big difference, though. Between all the parallels, here's the big difference. Jesus didn't do anything to deserve the pit, but we did. We deserve the pit. But Jesus took the pit so that you don't have to. So that you could come out. You know, Psalm 60:10, and this is a messianic, prophetic psalm. Speaking of the Messiah, it says, "For you will not leave my soul in Sheol," or the pit. "Nor will you allow your Holy One to see corruption. You will not leave my soul in Sheol." It's this prophetic scripture that's saying, you will, even though I go to the grave, you won't leave me there. You'll pull me out. But I also believe this applies to us. Listen, when you find yourself in the pit, he says, I'm not leaving you there. I won't. As soon as you cry out to me, as soon as you humble yourself, as soon as you realize that you can't do this without me, I'll never leave you there. I will pull you out every single time. I want our prayer team to come up. Listen, I feel this. If you feel today like, Pastor, I'm in the pit. Things are just rough. I'm in this spot, and I've tried to motivate myself out. Don't you do all those things? I've tried to talk myself out. But I just can't find a way out. But God. And I believe if you cry out to Him, He'll begin to pull you out of that place. It might not happen today. It might not happen. It's a process that begins to start. That He pulls you out. And He starts speaking life back into you, dreams back into you, purpose back into you. So today as we just worship Him, and I want you just to ask the Holy Spirit, speak to me, God, whatever it is I need, speak to me as we worship Him for a little bit. But if you need prayer today, maybe you're in that pit, maybe you need Christ, and you need Him to just pull you and bring you back to a relationship with Him. Well, will you come and let one of these just prayer team pray with you? I believe you're going to get out of something today. Well, can we just worship? And if you need prayer, will you come?
Simply come. Let me just to bring something that's of earth that will bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You'll search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship when it's all